Hello everyone, I'm Mike Kenichi and welcome to another edition of Hometown Heroes. And tonight is part 2 of our celebration of the 1992 Class S Baseball Derby Red Raiders State Championship team, and we have 4 people from that group: Gino DeMoro, Steve Riley, John DeFrancisco, and Ben Bartone. And guys, I want to thank you for coming on again. Part 1 was awesome, and I'm sure part 2 is going to be even better.
It's a pleasure to be here,
Mike.
Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you. So let's get right into it. I believe round 1 was against Coventry, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting game because you guys start off the first inning right away with 2 runs. I think Joey Leza got a 2-run single.
Yeah.
And you guys are up 2-0, but I don't think any scoring was done the rest of the way. And that was, first round was a tough one. It was a close call. It wasn't easy. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, we got, like you said, we got off to a quick start. We got a couple clutch hits. I think Joe Leza got a big hit in that inning. And it looked like it was going to be an easy game. And, you know, Donnie was just sailing along. And I don't know if we got complacent, but I think the game was only about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours. It was short. We played like airless ball. Like I said, I didn't think that Coventry was that good, but we just, after the first inning, we hit the ball. We had a couple opportunities, I think, in the 4th and 5th inning, but we were unable to get the run in. So we took the victory and we went from there. But it was a game where, if you read about it, you were going to say, "Ooh, look at this Derby team."
Right.
There's something to fear. It was just a nice game that I think we were ranked 20th or 22nd, something like
really
that.
low.
18.
Low.
Right.
18?
18.
Okay,
18, I believe.
and I think they were 12 maybe, or they were higher than us.
Yeah, they were higher than us.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, it was a game that probably went unnoticed in the paper, but it was a good game to
One
win.
of the things, John, I don't know if you recall it, but we got stuck in traffic
Yeah.
on the way there on Route 84. So to get to Coventry, which is like an hour and a half bus ride,
Right.
we were stuck in traffic on 84 at a
You're
dead
right, I'm
stop.
sorry.
Trying to
No
get on
AC.
No AC.
It was
Air
hot that
conditioning
day.
Bus. So what we were trying to do was we were immediately trying to figure out what are we going to do as soon as we get off this bus, because we knew we were going to get there maybe 40 minutes or so before the game started. So we knew it was going to be a scramble.
Right.
So what we did was we decided to do a little stretching on the bus. So we told the players, start doing a little stretching now on the bus. And then what we did was when we got off the bus, we had half the team go down and do their thing, and the other half was in the batting cage.
Right.
So while
Right.
the infielders were taking their pregame infield, the outfielders were hitting, and then while the outfielders were taking their pregame infield, our infielders were hitting. So there was kind of a scramble before that game to get us ready.
Right.
But I think one of the things that it actually ended up helping us a little bit was that we didn't have time to think about it. Like it was
Right.
more or less get off the bus, warm up fast, get out there and start playing. But in the first inning, the unique thing that I recall was John calling for the 2-strike hit and run on George Hay.
Right.
George took the first pitch right down the middle, strike
Right.
1. Second pitch right down the middle, strike 2. And John just gave him the hit and run sign,
Right.
figuring just get the bat off your shoulder. It was kind of odd.
He's going to take the third
He's gonna
pitch.
take the third pitch right down the middle. So then what happened was George Hay ended up getting a hit. So with an 0-2 hit and run. So that unusual type of baseball strategy actually worked right off
Yeah.
the bat. So
I remember the look on his face, like, I hit the ball. Wow, gee. But
so Donnie Shepard was pitched an excellent game that day. I mean, it was more like one of those games where you only had 2-0 and you're worried.
Right.
But the fact that they didn't have a lot of base runners also told us that, that Donnie was in command and he was dominating.
And I think it just proves that, again, we're in football. If you have the most talent, you're going to win. Basketball, the same thing. Baseball, you could have all the talent in the world, but if you come up against good pitching, it doesn't matter. And that was the case for both teams that day. Coventry
Yeah.
faced good pitching, Derby faced good pitching, and it basically came down to pitching in that game.
right.
One of the things also in that game that I remember was the number of people that went to that game.
Yeah.
From Derby.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
The number of people that went. We had a good contingent of fans that took that hour and a half ride up to Coventry to watch. I remember, your dad was there. I think your whole family was there
Yeah.
too, Ben.
Right.
So we looked at all the
I
people.
think all the Sparrows made
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
we had a good contingent of people going up
Right.
to see us
I
play.
think Coach DeCenzo came up.
Yeah,
Coach Oko, yeah.
That meant a lot to us too. That we had a lot of people behind us.
Right, and a lot of people were, following that team in the tournament. And I mean, that's the other thing too. When you're taking those long bus rides and you get there and you see, oh wow, Mr. DeCenzo's here, or Mrs. Shea's here. It has to be a good feeling when you see these people here, even though your mind's on the game.
Yeah.
You still see them and you notice them.
Yeah.
And that was a long bus. And I'm sure the wear and tear on the kids. It's hot. There's no air conditioning. It's a long ride. It tires you out.
Right.
So you have to kind of you have to revitalize yourself when you get off the bus. And like Steve said, we got caught in that traffic, so there wasn't really much time to warm up. But Steve, he's really innovative with doing different things. So he says this half of the team will do this other half of the team will
Right.
do that. And so we got a lot done in a short period of time to get ready. So thank God for that. So it was a good victory.
And keep in mind, you talked about the long bus ride. You didn't allow the players to talk before the game. If they were on the bus on the way up, you allowed no talking. So you got, impatient kids on the bus, and they have to be quiet for an hour and a half. That's not an easy thing.
They wouldn't allow anybody to talk.
We actually had a meeting prior to that.
Right.
Remember our meeting?
Yes. The thing was this. I mean, coaching football, these kids playing football, they knew that on the way up on the bus, you didn't talk.
Right.
So they just took that and imparted that on the baseball team, because before that year, the kids used to talk and you just try to calm them down, and they calm down for about 4 or 5 minutes
Right.
and then start up again. But these kids, they made sure that the other kids didn't talk, that they were concentrating on the game.
Right.
And that was, that was something that it's like you said, Gino, I think you guys had a meeting.
We had a meeting, a team
said-
meeting, and
This is
before the
what we're going
tournament
to
started,
do.
and
Right.
we just wanted everybody to be focused and play hard, no distractions.
Right. And I believe now the Portland game, which was round 2, I believe, didn't it rain that day a little bit too, and there was a long rain delay? Was it the Portland
Wheeler,
game?
Wheeler, it
No,
rained.
Or
that was-
Wheeler,
Wheeler
yeah.
rained.
Wheeler, it
Wheeler.
rained.
But the Portland game, Gino, if I remember correctly, I mean, you made some unbelievable plays that day,
yeah.
some, game-saving plays. Just talk about that game, because that was your coming-out game that day. You were unbelievable in the field.
Yeah, kind of like a surreal day. Just everything just was hit my way, and I was ready. I was ready that day. Ben pitched phenomenal again,
Yes.
and
So.
yeah, and
It's a great game.
a lot of hard hit balls, and
Right.
I think that was the most diving I did all year. A lot of deep shots into the hole, and we were able to come. I think a couple double plays we were able to make on that one, but at least some force outs that we were able
Right.
to get at second and help Benny on the mound that day.
Now, I can't remember. Did you have a new pair of goggles by then?
No, for the tournament I was goggle-less.
He was goggleless.
Yeah.
and,
Just had to make Coach
he
very
played
happy.
his,
Yes.
he played his best baseball without the goggles.
Yes, I did not have any goggles that
I don't
day.
even think you wore your cup that day.
I didn't need it.
No cup. I said, you don't need a cup.
And I
You're
believe
not
you guys,
making it here.
I believe you guys won that game 4-1, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken. So Ben, I mean, you pitched a great game, and by that point, Ben, I think this was like your 5th or 6th win in a row. So you had turned what you thought was a bad season around. It was a hard luck season. You had to be thrilled just the fact that you were on your game at that point.
Yeah, it was. The game didn't go as well, for me. The umpire again. I mean, I never usually complain about balls and strikes,
Oh,
but
you-
he was kind of. I mean, I had 10 strikeouts that game, but I also had 10 walks. I mean, that's
Right.
like,
Yes.
you don't hear that,
Right.
I mean, I literally had to throw the ball right over the plate to get a call, So it was a tough. Gino was tremendous. That game. Some of the plays he made saved innings for us. It was just a great game because we found a way to win. You know what I mean? It was a number
Right.
1 seed. Don't forget. Portland was the number 1 seed in
Right.
the tournament. We had to go to their field. I remember getting
Which
there.
is another long ride.
Right. We left early. We got
Yeah.
out of school early.
That was the difference. We owned that field
Right.
that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We walked on that field
Like it
We
was
had to
your-
walk by their school.
I believe they
get
were
off the
still in
bus,
session at that point.
and all the kids were
Yeah, they
looking
were
out the
still-
They
window.
were still
at
in
us.
school.
Yeah.
They were still in
They
school.
were looking out the window like, wow, Derby's here, and so we just kind of took over the field.
Well, I remember
And,
talking to Coach Riley and said, "Could you check out who's playing second base for us?" He says, "It's Gino. Our Gino's making all those diving plays." And our boy Gino.
Well, you know, Ben's right, Mike. That game was a bit. Some of the things that we didn't do to properly prepare for Coventry, we thought about before we left for Portland. We had a day in between, so we had an off day to practice, so we had a chance to think about it.
Right.
Number one, we found an article about that Portland's best pitcher, that they had won. Portland had won their league. I think it was the Shoreline League that year, a game at Palmer Stadium. So we knew that Portland's top pitcher was a lefty. So the day before the tournament, we were trying to, throw a little bat in practice and make sure the guys knew, hey, we're going to face a lefty tomorrow, more likely than not. So, and then we decided, and we were fortunate to get the bus to leave very early.
Right.
So we got there very early. We walked onto the field. The city crew was still working on the field, and we wanted to take it over,
Right.
which we did.
Yeah.
We started practicing on their field, long before Portland came out of school, and
We were relaxed.
we were relaxed, because we had done
Coventry
everything.
was hectic.
Yeah, they were
relaxed at
rushing, and
this.
we were sitting back. And then I remember the big thing was when when Portland took the field for their infield, Coach DiTullio showed up, and then he just walked right through their practice.
It was great.
I'm here.
We owned the
We were all
field.
like fools. Like, it was great.
And
We were
Portland was
screaming.
sort
The
of-
kids were screaming.
They were walking right. He walked straight through their infield, and I was like,
Who's
Right.
going to stop him?
okay, because he had that image of him so big and so tough, and that I think got us, psyched up about the game, and then I think if I remember right, we jumped out to a bit of a lead, and then the pitching with Ben held their own, and we were able to hold
Right.
them off, even though the umpire, we did get, Ben got squeezed, and they weren't doing anything early on. They started hitting the ball a little bit better as the innings went on, but we had good defense that day, and Gino was phenomenal. I mean, we're talking about flat-out horizontal dives to knock down balls and
Yeah.
make outs with them. Never mind
Right.
just keep them in the infield.
He made
He was
outs,
turning them
yeah.
into outs. So that was a big difference because Ben was firing it, and they were hitting the ball to the opposite field. So, he making those plays was a big difference. That was a big difference in the game. And John's right. That was Gino's day to shine.
I think he played a
and
little
Ben's game
deeper.
to break back into the win column.
Yeah.
Into the tournament. So now we knew going into the next game, you sort of had the progression of how we were going to do it.
I think in the article that I think their coach mentioned the fact that even though we didn't have one of the better records, that we played in the Housatonic League.
Correct.
So
Right.
he knew that we were going to be a good team because
Tougher talent.
we played
Tougher
tougher
schedule.
talent. He knew about North Haven, he knew about Chester, he knew about Shelton and the teams that we
Yeah.
had to play.
The Branfords,
Right.
the East Havens,
Yeah, so
Lyman Halls.
just like we knew about them, they knew about us. So
Right. Let me ask you this. You talked about Ben getting squeezed a lot. One of the things I think is very unfair, and it's in every level, is you can't argue balls and strikes. But I mean, to me, that's ridiculous because there are some umpires who just, for whatever reason, an obvious strike, they don't call it, and an obvious ball, they call a strike. I mean, it's very frustrating. How frustrating is it for you as a coach when you can't argue it? Because if you do, you're getting ejected.
well, the thing is, the first two rounds are played in the higher team with the higher seed. And then
Right.
I think in the quarterfinals, then it becomes a neutral site. And as a coach who makes the tournament, well, I would always consult with Steve, and Tools would be on it too. We had to put out a list of umpires that we liked, who should be umpiring in the tournament. But in the first couple rounds, I think that the teams, that the umpires came from that league. Am I not right, Steve?
Yeah, they come from their umpire base.
Umpire
Right.
base.
But I think part of it is too. It's a matter of not getting used to what they consider strikes, what we consider strikes. In other words, if you play in our league, you're going to get umpires that they give you a certain strike, certain pitches of strike, and so on. When you go to another league, their strike zones are different. So part of it is adapting to what their strike zone is going to be.
Right.
And then on the same token, when you play on the road early in the tournament, the goal really is to hit the ball because you can't expect at least not
You're not gonna
expect to
walk.
get any breaks by walking in the winning run or something. So we don't let umpires dictate the game to us, which is what that team did. But we always had to battle through it in the earlier rounds. We had to battle through it. So, it's a mindset of no excuses, but on the same token, we were going to adapt.
Right.
So yes, and that's one of the reasons why George, I'm sure, came to us and said, hey, you're not thinking about taking Ben out, because Ben was still pitching well, even though he was walking people.
Right.
So even though people were getting free passes, he was
Right.
still pitching well, and our defense was still playing phenomenal. So.
That's another point I want to make too. To walk 10 batters in a game and then to
Yeah.
give
I was
up
like,
hits
I don't think you walked 10
and
guys in
only
a
allow
year.
one run. That just goes to show you,
Yeah.
how well your defense
How
played.
your
that.
defense is
Yeah.
playing.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
now let's get to the quarterfinals, and you guys just keep getting better and better. And this was no sweat, really. I think you guys won 9 or 10-0.
10-0, I believe.
Nothing, yeah.
Against Wheeler, and I mean, talk about that game, because that game was over quickly. I mean, you guys really did a number
Yeah.
on them.
I think we knew when we got there was a rain delay, so we had to wait. I forget how long it was, but I remember seeing their pitcher warming up, like down on their side, and he really didn't have anything that impressed us.
Right.
It's kind of like an average pitcher, didn't have much, kind of threw a flat fastball, and we just jumped on him quick.
Did Lisa go deep that day?
He hit a grand slam.
He hit a
yes.
grand slam.
Yes.
Slam, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, you guys were able to just roll over them. Did you find? Let me ask you this: were you just going game by game? Let's just win today. We'll worry about
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So I mean, you guys were just taking it one game at a
Right,
time.
because most of the time you don't know who you're going to play anyway, so you're just
Right.
like focused on that one game. You know?
Right. How hard is that as a coach when you don't know who you're going to play and you really can't scout them? You just have to kind of go with
Well,
the stat
I
sheet.
think the more games you play during the course of the year, the easier it becomes, because your game planning is not going to change much. You know that the longer you go into the tournament, the tougher it's going to be. So once you get to the quarterfinals or the semifinals, it's going to be a good team. You know it's going to be a good pitcher.
Right.
And so you just have to work. You just continue to, take your batting practice, take your infield, take your outfield, and just kind of stick to what you usually do in the course of practice, and don't try to overcoach
Right.
because it wasn't necessary. These kids do what they had to do.
Right.
Well, the thing I remember the most about that game was in top of the first inning, Ben got on second base. There was a base hit, and I sent him, and he ended up out at the plate. And John was looking at, giving me the look, and so
I wasn't.
John gave me the look. And then Ben told me after, when I got back into that, he said, "Don't worry about it. I'll get him back for you."
Yeah, he did.
Right.
So it was like, that was for me something where I said to myself, "Great, this is unbelievable. I can now coach without that sense of, well, you know what I mean? That you're going to make that mistake that blows the game.
Yeah,
and,
you're not going to make that mistake.
as coaches, you don't want to make that critical mistake, or you don't want to have that happen. And
Why did you think that I didn't coach third base? I didn't want to make that mistake. You can go make it.
So the thing is that when we were way ahead in that game, the thing that was great is you're in a tournament game. Anytime you're in a tournament game where you get a very large lead,
Right.
you
Doors
get that,
are open.
Pressure's
yeah, the
coming
door open, the pressure
Yes.
just goes right to the ground, and you're not feeling it anymore.
Right.
And then the nice part about those games is other guys who never get to play or never get to play a lot, they
Are
get to
getting
go
into
in
the
those
game.
games
Yes.
to get at bats, and
Right.
you get to see them. And what happens is, as a result of that game, the entire team starts to become even more of a team, because now the other guys get to contribute a little bit
Right.
more than they might normally.
Yeah.
I can remember Carlos getting an at-bat in that game, and some
And
other
you're
kids
able to rest your players,
yeah,
which is good
yeah.
too.
And again, I'll say it again. In that game, we had a good contingent of Derby people show up.
Yeah.
Right.
Every
So-
game.
We had the fan bus, and fan
Yeah,
buses
right.
were in full effect.
Yeah.
I remember, Charlie DeCenzo was cutting spring practice short. He practiced
Yeah,
early
yeah.
just so he could get up there for the game. So, I mean, D, you're great friends with Charlie,
Yeah.
and he was supporting you just like you supported him all
Yeah.
those years. So, I mean, the town was really getting behind this team,
Yeah,
which
they were.
was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we saw that ball go over that F-troop-like wooden fence they had out there in left
It
field,
was. Yeah.
it was a
Joey,
great
yeah.
feeling when Joey hit that grand slam. We knew that was, boom, we're winning this game, and to win 9-0 or 10-0, it was just something it really got us even more pumped to go into the next game.
Right. So now let's talk about the semis now. And these last two games were nail biters, and you guys play St. Thomas, a very good team. I think you win 5-3. I think it was 5-3.
5-3, I
And,
believe.
Yeah.
5-3.
You know, Ben, you're pitching. I mean, talk about that game and the nerves going through your body right
It was,
there.
for one, it was a familiar setting for us.
Right.
It was the game was in Cheshire.
Yes.
So I pitched on the mound before, so I kind of knew what I was going to get. You know, sometimes you go to do these fields where you don't, like it's already half dug out and your foot's out. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's high school, so you have to deal with it. But that game was, for me, that was my moment, knowing that after that game when we won, Coach Diaz said earlier, I jumped so high because that was, for me, you know, to cap everything off that's gone bad.
And you might think it's your last game pitching ever in high school
wasn't.
baseball.
Yeah. Right.
You don't know, so you're thinking this could be it.
Right. We knew that the team we were playing, St. Thomas, was very good because they, I believe, lost the year before in the finals.
Right.
And now they came back, and now they have the state Gatorade Player of the Year. He ends up going to Florida State. And this kid was legit. He was a catcher. So we knew we had a tough game. But for me, you know, that was the moment that I knew that, wow, I get to play in the state championship game. And
Monkey off the back.
Yeah, monkey off the
Feeling
back
too.
now. You
Yeah.
know, let's go.
Let's go do this.
We got one more to do. One more game to win. Let's go get it done, you know.
Right. And as great a game as you pitched, Gino, you had a big moment in that game as well, if I remember. You want to talk about that a little bit?
With the St. Thomas game, I remember I had an RBI. I think that put us up 4-3. I believe that was the fifth inning. Not sure, fifth. So, you know, putting us up, we were tied at that point, so putting us up 4-3, you know, we were just, the whole game we were just confident. And, you know, with Benny on the mound with that last strikeout, I think, against Marcinzik.
No, it wasn't, but it was. He was
Sixth inning.
Yeah, but he was a couple batters before, I think.
It just, you know, we were on high. We were in cloud nine, and you know, we were just playing above ourselves that tournament.
Yeah, the game, Mike, started off where we took another lead. Where I remember the first inning, we scored a run or two.
Right.
They came back. I remember Donnie was very nervous that game playing shortstop because there was a ground ball to short in the first inning. He threw it.
He threw it, yeah.
Threw
Yes.
over the,
He
yeah.
threw it over the fence.
To the fans.
To the fans.
Wow.
You know, and we were like, okay, settle down now. You know, so Donnie settled down after that and played good defense after that and hit the ball as well. So
Right.
Joey Lisa hit the ball well. We hit the ball well. We played good defense. The first time up, I remember Mr. Marcinsak struck out. Ben struck him out.
Yeah.
You know, and the second time he came up, he hit the ball and Pete caught it somewhere near the fence.
Somewhere near the fence,
About
yeah.
400 feet in the air.
Yeah. So Pete caught it somewhere near the fence. So we knew that, okay, this is going to be
This
tough in
kid,
the later
yeah.
innings.
Right.
That, you know, we couldn't let this kid beat us. And the other thing that happened in that game was that we did have a scout that had seen them. That was the only game we had scouted, and that was Riegers.
Mike, yeah?
Yeah, Mike Rieger.
Riegers had taken his van and gone all the way up to watch St. Thomas Aquinas play their quarterfinal game. And one of the things that happened in that game, I don't know if you guys remember this, but we played on a different day than we were supposed to.
Right.
We were supposed to play on Tuesday, but because St. Thomas had their class night, I think, that night.
And didn't the site
We
get
played
changed too?
Wednesday.
It was supposed to be at Muzzy
Yeah.
Field?
Muzzy
Right.
Field,
Yes.
then
And then
it got changed.
changed to Cheshire.
It got
To
changed to
Cheshire.
Cheshire. So because
Right.
of the change in the date, it got changed. And we also knew that if the date changed, that could impact us going into any final game because of the pitching limitation rules.
Right.
That we were now pitching on Wednesday, and we could end up with a game on Friday, which could end up boxing us in on the pitching rules. So some of that stuff went through our mind, but Jocko Viet coached great first base that game because
Did.
George couldn't make it.
Right.
George had work. He tried his best to switch. He couldn't make it, so Jocko came and coached first base that day. He did a great job over there, and the players did the rest. I mean, you know,
Right.
they hit the ball, they ran. Ben pitched a great game. You know, that is an iconic image of you jumping straight up in the
Yeah,
air.
it
with
was
the glove
great,
going
great
up in the
feeling.
air,
Yeah.
you know.
Great feeling.
But then sort of reality hit the moment we got on the bus.
That you're in the championship game.
Well, yeah, because I remember John saying, because the kids were really ruckus on the bus and they were whooping it
We
up.
haven't
and-
done anything yet.
Yeah, and John was like, you know, sort of like taking a Mike Krzyzewski sort of view of
Yeah.
things and said, you know, hey, we haven't done anything yet. Nobody remembers the runner-up. And then you could
Right.
see on Donnie Shepard's
Oof.
face that Donnie Shepard was like, yeah, and it's all on my shoulders. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And I think he was going around school that whole day. Like,
Yeah, I
talking
think
about
at
that,
practice, the same thing. He
Right.
when he was taking bat in practice, nobody
Yeah.
remembers the runner-up. Though I think Riles called down and said we had walkie-talkies because the batting cage was up and I was down. He said, I think we got to send Shep home because he's walking around in circles. I said,
Right.
this is good.
Yeah.
He said, okay, send him home, whatever.
Yeah, we told Donnie we can go home. First, he came down to the field. He was taking baseball bats and flinging them up straight up in the air when he was up at the top of the cages. So that's when I told John, you know,
Nervous breakdown.
he was really trying to get rid of a lot of anxiety. So when I came down with the other players down to the main baseball field, and Donnie came with us, and then so John got to see firsthand that he had an anxiety level. So he told him to go home and just go relax
Right.
and just go to sleep somewhere.
I think the good thing is, though, you only really had one day to think about it.
Yeah.
Because you had
Right.
to go play the next
Right.
day. But,
Yeah.
I mean, did you guys have trouble sleeping that night? Did any of you sleep? Or-
I don't recall. To
I
be
don't
honest
recall.
with you.
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
I mean, at that point, you're in
You
high
were
school.
probably
You're
walking the track.
Well,
I was
yeah.
probably up at 4:30 walking around the track or walking
Right.
around my house or something. But or down at Dunkin' Donuts looking at the scorebook and the guy saying
Or crickets.
or crickets.
crickets.
The one time I was down at Dunkin' Donuts and looking, circling different things that I could have done. The guy says, "Do the numbers on that page change?" I said, "No." He says, "Then what are you doing?" I said, "I could have done this differently. I could have done." He says, "Yeah, but you did. Why don't you close the book? What do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a teacher." He says, "4:30 in the morning. Where do you teach?" I says, "Right up the hill in Derby." He says, "Why don't you go home?" I closed the book. I went home, and that was it. I never.
Yeah, so we got some pretty good advice too. We also had, you know, I'd met with Joe Benanto almost every day. I used to see him at breakfast on Shelton on my way to work, and I would talk to him about what did he do because he won 3 state titles in a row. So I would
Right.
say, like, what did you do on the, you know, day before a title game, and how did you approach things? And you know, he basically gave us some pretty good advice. Said, you know, keep it short. You know, don't have long practices. Everything you did, you know, if you don't know it by now, you don't know it. Just keep it short. He says the kids have a lot to do. When they go home, they have enough problems to deal with their
Right.
parents and everybody asking them about the game, and you know, they have to start to get their point of relaxation.
Right.
So we tried to keep it as short as we could, and then sent everybody home for the next day.
Right. I think one of the things that was really cool too is Mike Angelini, who was the principal at the time. He scheduled a pep assembly that day for the kids, and I think that really got everybody fired up. And in a lot of ways, I think it relaxed, especially Donnie. It relaxed him because
Yeah.
he was tense as it was, and you know, everybody was cheering him on. And I think like the team just they got even more energized.
No, we're not used to that in baseball. You know,
Right.
football, absolutely, we look forward to it.
Right.
But you know, it's Derby, and now we're talking baseball, and it definitely set a fire under us that you know
Or
was
Steve
already
was
lit.
mad at
and-
me because I didn't call him and tell him about the pep assembly.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
You didn't go?
I didn't go.
He wasn't there. He didn't know about it. So Mr.
didn't know
Angelini says,
about
we're
it.
going to have a pep assembly. I said, what?
This was
I was like stunned. Then I got a letter from Oko wrote a letter that
to
I
the
read.
team. Yeah.
Coach Oko wrote a letter. I read it at the assembly. And then when I came to the field house, there's Steve. He's all dressed. He says, thanks for telling me about the assembly. Oh, no. I said, what a jerk.
You know what was unique though about that day too is again I brought it up earlier. You were definitely the head coach that day because you were not your normal self at the pep rallies like you normally are.
Yeah.
You were very laid back and you know it was different. Like you know you were now John D, the head coach, not John
Right.
D. And I mean, but the kids responded. They always did.
Yeah.
So what was the bus ride up like that day?
Well, it's like what was quiet. It was like, you know, I think the kids were talking. They were talking about the game. There's certainly not a loud noise. Steve and
There
I
wasn't much
talked a little bit.
Right.
You know, we just talked what we wanted to do. I said we want to be aggressive. If we get somebody on, we're going to steal. We're going to bump. We're going to hit and run. We're going to do like put the pressure on them.
Right.
And I think we did that in the game. And he kind of agreed with me, you know, and like, basically that's what it was, you know, it was,
Right.
you know, but I had been saying, I forgot to bring this up. I think when we made the state tournament, I went into the locker room and I said, you know, we're 12-8, but I think we have the best team in the S tournament. Anything less than a state championship would be a disappointment.
Right.
And I walked out of the room and I had 19 stunned kids looking at me as if to say, you know, I said, why we're going to get intimidated by teams like Chepauk Valley or whatever.
When you think about it, we play L schools
L,
all year
L
long.
and double L schools.
Not one S school we played.
Yeah.
We didn't play
Right.
one S school, so I said, what do we have to be worried about?
Right.
You know, and then we just played our game, and things came to pass. But
Right.
I think we had that nervous excitement feeling for me, like
Right.
on the way up. You know,
Yeah.
you're ready, it's a state title game. But for me, once we stepped off that bus and we saw the amount of Derby fans there,
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
It was
I
like
mean,
it was
entire
like a Derby
football
game.
teams,
Yeah.
What?
the girls softball team, all your family, your parents,
Cheerleaders.
cheerleaders.
they hung our motto, "Believe," out in the
Believe.
right field
Well,
fence.
I knew he was ready because I was out with the pitch with Donnie, and I see this missile go off. He hit over the fence on the first. You remember that?
Yeah, it hit to the outfield.
He hit it to the outfield. It went
Riles
over.
was fired up.
Went over. I said, "Wow, what a shot! Who hit that? That was Riles." I said, "He's in the line to put him up fourth."
Yeah.
I said, "Riles, you just tanked one over there." I said, "You got to go
Fired
get
up.
the ball."
Yeah.
You know, Steve, you mentioned this to me the other day, and it's really true. This game itself, you could spend 3 hours on it because
Oh,
so
sure.
many things went back and forth in this game. You know, you
Yeah.
talk about Angelo DeRuba, the poor kid gets picked off at first.
No.
You know, that was a backbreaker. You know, there were a couple other. I think
Sure.
you didn't send one of the runners. Or,
Yeah, that was,
right, and the fans were giving you some grief.
Yeah, that was in the seventh
Right.
inning. I mean,
and you guys were behind. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it was a dogfight. So
we jumped out to a lead. You know, I remember the bus ride up. We wanted to make sure, first of all, that we didn't screw up. You know, it was like
Right.
the little things. John and I always worried about the little things, like make sure we got the fungos, make sure we got
Right.
the balls, make sure we got the helmets. You know, make sure you got the bats.
Checklist.
So you know, when you get to that point, you're always saying, okay, let's make sure we got everything that we're going to get on
Right.
the bus, because once you get on that bus, you don't have to turn it around.
No.
right.
So
See,
I
I didn't
remember-
worry about that because he had this red bag that he brought with him, and it was like a magic bag. He had everything in it.
Everything.
Help me out,
I
guys.
think
Am I
that's
right?
Sandwich to cover.
I would've
Yes.
taken-
I think he knew that
He had eye
you had
black.
enough to worry
Yes.
about.
He
You
had
would
eye
take
black.
that off.
He
was
had
his,
sunglasses.
His
He
grab and go bag.
You always
He
had
had,
the bazooka.
he had eye
Yeah.
drops, bazooka gum. He had everything. Band-Aids.
Yeah, just in
Anything you want.
case. So in case anything ever got needed, I always had this like.
It was like a Santa Claus bag.
Yeah, it was like,
Right.
so I had this. So I wanted to make sure that we had everything on the bus that we possibly needed. And then when I went out to the bus, it was bus number
Kept
7.
Abysmal.
7.
Yeah.
Pete's number.
So
Pete's
it's
number.
Krasnowski's number is number 7. It's always lucky number 7. So
Right.
you know, you're sort of showing the players, hey, look, there's number 7. We got the 7 bus.
Right.
So you're trying anything to, like, you know, your superstitions are all kicking in. You know, George Hay came late because and then John got upset. He was late for the practice for a state championship,
I
like
know.
to meet there. And then we found out that we called him in. The reason why he got late is he wanted to get a haircut. So he said, "Well, how much are we really going to jump in the guy's face now? Don't make an issue of it because we don't
Oh,
want
yeah,
distractions. So we just let it go. You know, it's like how much are you going to make an issue of it on the day of the game?
Right.
So, you know, and John made a poignant statement before we left. He said, well, you know, guys, we're in a state title game. Why not win it? So,
Right.
We're here.
you know, we're
Let's do
here.
it.
Why not win the thing? So, you know, we got on the bus. We were pretty positive, but it was very, very quiet.
Right.
You know, John and I are in our usual front seat and behind the driver, and we're going up, and I'm bumping him, saying, "Look at our team. You know, there's a focused team." And it was just, that was a really good point. I mean, a good moment for me and for John.
Yeah.
To look
Right.
back at our players, you know, and to see the intensity of what they were going through. Ben was pounding his mitt. You know,
He had tears in his eyes, I
Yeah,
think.
he was pounding his mitt. He really wanted to
I
win
think
this
Ben
game.
and
You know,
Right.
Gino, they had tears in their eyes. They were that
Were you nervous?
emotional.
Gino? I
He
mean,
was excited.
Like I said, it was that nervous
yeah,
excitement.
Excitement.
You know?
But you weren't nervous to go out
It was
there.
more the
No.
it
And you
was
have-
more the goosebump type emotion.
Yes.
Right.
Like, wow, this is this is little town Derby going to play in a state championship game. Like,
And knowing what we had just come from during football season and, you know, reflection on
right.
that,
Yeah, it
like,
all starts to
we're
kick in.
here. You know, this is what we've done.
And the other thing is too, you know, you both played on the football team that won the state title.
Right.
But you guys were juniors, you were underclassmen, so it was your team, but it was also
Right.
their team as
Right.
well. This was your team now, and this
Right.
was you guys were the leaders of this team, so that had to definitely be
Yes.
something.
Along with us too, and Pete Kriz, Joey G, Carlos, you know, the seniors on
Right.
that team,
Yeah.
and you know,
And the other thing is, you know, you get off the bus. We had driven by the field on our way to Portland and back, so you got to see
Where
the
you
final
could be.
game, where you could be.
Right.
So you know, you got that anticipation, and then when we got off the bus, you see the big truck from NBC.
Yeah.
You know, with
the light towers,
the towers.
the
Yeah.
big bleachers. You never played
Right.
it.
You
You
From
never played it
something
anything like
that
that.
before.
So
Right.
yeah, it's sort of like, you know, and then the night before, I must have watched Hoosiers like 4 times
Yeah,
with John.
right, yeah.
You kept them interested for
No, he kept wanting to watch it over and over again. So, he kept saying to me, "Let's watch the end one more time." I was like, all right.
Right.
So, and then I asked him the day before the game. I said, "Why don't you call the coach for the team that played Terryville in the semis?" And John had finally decided to call the guy about 9 o'clock the day before the game. And the guy's telling him a wealth of information now that we now know a bit about this team. And then I get off the bus and I see Terryville walking around and I see the coach who I had coached against like 15 years before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, I know this guy and I know who he is
Right.
and the way he coaches. You know, he was a very, very enthusiastic coach. And I was like, oh no, we got this guy who's going to try to do everything possible.
Right.
And so we sort of got, and like Ben said, you know, it was like a football game atmosphere where we had cheerleaders with megaphones.
Megaphones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Megaphones,
Yes.
cowbells, the horns. It was
Air
like-
horns.
Yeah, and that was really good. I mean, that was really big.
You guys had a lot of your former teammates from the football team that made the trip
Yeah.
up.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I could think of Rich Lord, Ken Lyman.
Louis Gaetano,
Even
Dominic
the older guys
Bolano.
like graduate. I remember
Yeah.
Jason Palmieri was
Brian
there. All those
Marcuscio.
guys were
Yes.
there too. You know?
Yeah, so I mean, everybody
That was
was
big.
rooting you guys on. It was really like an awesome scene. Now, right off the bat, you could tell that Donnie doesn't have much. Like, his arm's basically shot. And Ben, you have to come in, I believe, for 3 innings. Talk about that. I mean, I would be willing to bet you were more excited than you were nervous because you were like, yes, I can do this.
Absolutely. I wanted the ball. I wanted to go in. I was so upset when I had to come out.
Right.
Because I was actually in a rhythm. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I might have struck out 5 guys in
I
3
think
innings.
6 guys.
In
Yeah,
3 innings.
yeah.
And, you know, everything was working. And I remembered the quick funny story. I remember Dee's mother, God rest her soul, was yelling at him. Why are you taking Ben out? Why are you taking Ben out? Remember?
Yeah. I said, "Ma, there's any innings left." He said, "Cheat."
She goes, cheat.
"Cheat." Because the other, I said, "You don't think the other guy knows?"
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Cheat. Okay.
Yeah, I think that game, what happened was, you know, Donnie had culminated in a lot of things were culminated at once. No one the day before he had such nervous energy.
Right.
We started off the game, we jumped out to a lead, so now everything fell on his shoulders again.
Right.
So as time went on, it started to wear on him. Ben, on the other hand, was more focused. He said, "Hey, you're losing your focus, Donnie." I remember Ben telling him
Yeah.
this stuff in the dugout, like, "You're losing your focus. You're losing your focus." And Ben was extremely focused, and Donnie was more worried about losing. Ben was more
Right.
thinking about winning. So,
Right.
and that's where I think it was a little bit. It was really weighing on Donnie.
It was a very
more
emotional
so.
game.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
ups,
Was.
downs.
Right.
Yeah. Because you go out to a lead, and then all of a sudden you fall behind.
Right.
And then on top of it, their pitcher is pitching very, very well. I mean,
Yes.
you know, that was not a team that did not deserve to be there. Let me put it that way.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So Ben, talk about the 7th inning now. Think back to when you got in that batting cage the first day of practice and you swung the bat and your wrist is killing you.
Yep.
Well, now 2 outs, it's do or die. You bat and you get a big hit, ties the game. What was that feeling like?
Well, that's another situation, you know, thinking to myself, wow, this is it. I mean, everything that's going on with me, you know, the football season, like, wow, I'm up here with 2 outs. I think it was a full count, too.
Right.
Yeah.
What if I, you know, don't get a hit and we lose?
Right. And you'd
How's
have
that gonna go
such
then?
bad luck the whole
Right.
school year.
Right. You know, it just hung in there, you know. I mean, like I said, it was a full count. I believe it was a base hit up the middle. It wasn't hit that hard. I might have got jammed a little, but it was
Right.
good enough to get out there and get the runs in, and everyone went crazy. It was a great feeling for me, you know.
Yeah.
I knew at that point, once we tied the game, that we were going to win.
Right. And I mean, it just seemed like it was destiny. You know, the one thing you get worried about is, though, they get the last at bat.
Right.
And you always worry, is somebody going to give up a home run
Right.
or give up a double to lead off the end? And so, I mean, how were you guys in the field, Gino? Were you loose or were you
We were
tight?
very loose.
And I think
the
you made
first
a big play
inning,
in the 8th
did.
inning.
first inning, I
Yeah.
took a hard grounder off the chest, and I had a bruise for like 2 weeks.
Right.
But I mean, that set the tone for me. You know, put me in my place. I believe maybe second inning, they hit a deep shot to right. David Roman picked it up, relayed it into me. Actually, no, that was later in the game.
That was later in the game.
Right.
later in the
Great
game.
throw to third.
Guy on first.
Right, yeah.
Actually, no, bases were empty.
there was a guy on first.
Guy on
he was
first.
going third.
Right.
Yes,
he
took the
does.
relay from Ann Roman, fired it to Joey G. Joey slapped the tag on
Right
him.
on the
And,
right on the
you know,
money.
we needed that.
Absolutely.
yeah.
They would have won the game.
Right, and that was a big play by you. So I mean, every senior, I mean every player, but every senior was getting a chance to contribute. And,
absolutely.
you got to look at yourself. It wasn't easy for you to get on the field, either in football or baseball. You weren't actually the tallest guy in the world, but you had that heart to go out there. You started at nose guard. Nobody thought you could do that. And then you're playing second base for this team, and you're making big plays. Had to be just a tremendous
It is. I mean,
feeling
but
for
that's how we are in Derby. You know, we've
Right.
never been big. Our heart is bigger than our bodies, and you know, I was raised on that, and you know, watched that growing up from a 9-year-old, and watching the people in front of me play, and that's just our makeup. We go out, we fight, we battle, we're gritty.
Right.
Size never matters with anything. I think Coach DeCenzo put in my yearbook one of the toughest he ever coached, you know, pound for pound. So, I mean, it's not about size, it's the heart. And, you know, these guys get us fired up every day.
Right.
They're just positive in the way they coach. Every coach we've ever had, positive. They never got down on us. And, you know, for us, that game, same thing. And I think that's why, you know, if something happened and we were down, you know, we get down, I think we were down 2.
Yeah, we were down 2.
Yeah.
Right.
It didn't,
Nope, 2 runs.
it didn't phase us. It's like we know
Right.
we have this, you know,
Right, and there was no quit on this team
Never.
whatsoever.
never.
So, Coach D, talk about Joey Guyon's at bat, because I think he must have fouled off about 13 pitches.
14,
Yeah, about
I
14
believe.
pitches.
Right,
So
and
I
tell the
thought-
famous line that you said
Well, I
to him
said,
at
look,
the
you
end.
either get a hit or strike out. Let's get on with it. Let's get going.
Right,
You know, I said, this is getting crazy now.
right.
And
And he kind
like,
of smiled at you.
he kind of like looked at me, smiled to indicate
And he never
I'm gonna do
smiled
this.
during
No,
it.
he
No.
never really smiled.
Right.
And then
Joey
he hit
was
the
all
shot over the
business.
left fielder's head, and he drove in 2 runs. And like I said, you know, I said earlier in the broadcast or the first broadcast that you know, he had 2 big hits that year. He had the Cheshire, and then he had the 2-run double in the
Right.
championship game. But he did foul off about
It was 14, I believe.
14, whatever.
Which he
14
probably
pitches.
wore the pitcher down. I'm sure he did.
He battled.
He wore me down. That's right.
And Steve, it had to be a good thrill for you because you'd kind of tried to work with him.
Yeah,
and
earlier in
He
the
did.
year when
Yeah.
he had problems. Yeah.
So to see him hit the home run and then hit that double.
See, if you also remember is that, you know, if you just back up a little bit in the 7th inning, you had the scenario where we had a runner. We almost
Right.
the game could have ended like a number of times. We had Joey Guyon got on base. Could have been a double play. He beats out the ground ball for
Yeah.
the double play. He's on first. Gino comes up. It's a high sky ball to right center that drops in. So
Yeah.
we have
Right.
men on first and second. You know, and then the next play they tried to pick off
Me at first.
Julian
He
Gino at
balked.
first.
He balked.
The pitcher balked, so now we had runners on second and third when Pete Krasnowski came up. So we had top of the order, down by 2, man on second and third, with nobody out. So we're thinking, okay, or 1 out rather. There's 1 out.
Right.
So Pete hits the fly ball to right. It's too shallow, so I
You
sort of
didn't
made the
send it.
decision
Right.
not to send Joey Guyon. I took a little heat from the fans for that. They thought I should have tagged him and go.
Right.
But, you know, then the next one up is Ben. I'm figuring, hey, you got Ben up, you're down by 2, not by 1. If we had been down by 1, maybe I would have sent him. I don't know.
Right.
But
Worked out.
and Ben gets the hit. Richie Calvert was pinch running at second base
Right.
for Gino. Then Richie
Scored the
Calvert
2.
scores the tie and run.
Yeah.
And then it goes on from there until we get to that 11th inning. He's talking
Right.
about 4 extra innings where it went back and forth where we
Right.
could have lost a number of
Right.
ways. There was they had a runner on first and second. I remember when nobody out. There was a bunt back to Ben's right. He gets the force at third.
Third.
You
Yeah.
don't make that play,
They probably win the
they
They
game.
probably
Yeah.
win the game. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the number of ways that they could have won that game,
Right.
and the number of ways that we could have won it earlier too.
You
but I
couldn't
mean,
make mistakes. You
No.
had to basically
You
be
had to make all the
perfect
plays.
out there.
Yeah.
And
Gino
you
made
guys-
that great relay that came
That
in
was
off the throw from
unbelievable.
David and Roman. He gets the runner out at third base on a perfect tack by Joey Guyon.
Right.
In the 11th inning, you know, when Joey Guyon finally gets up, one thing you have to remember, Joey Lisa was on second base.
Yeah.
David and Roman was on first base. Now, every 3-2 pitch with 2 outs, all
They're
those
taking
runners are
off.
taking
These
off.
guys, yeah.
So he fouls off 7 in a row. You know,
guys
I
are
wasn't
beat.
worried about
Yeah.
David and Roman because he was a running back in football.
Yeah.
I was more worried about Lisa lumbering from second base, trying to score all the time. I was like, he was getting exhausted,
Right.
running 7 times in a row off at the crack, off on the pitch. and David and Roman off on the pitch, and then fortunately Joey gets the big double, but one bounce off the wall. We score both runners because it was 3-2. I mean 3-2 with the 3-2 pitch.
Yeah.
But also, fortunately for us, that was the 11th inning, so their pitcher had gone all 10 innings.
Yeah.
And that was the first inning that we faced anybody other than their ace.
Right.
So, that was, when you think about the culmination of that game, you could virtually write a book from the sixth inning on.
Sixth on.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
there's so many
So much
things that
stuff.
happened, and you're talking about, some of our games are an hour and a half. This one was 4 hours.
Right.
And when it started going towards 11:30, that's when I was bumping John saying,
What
what happens if we go over midnight? Can Ben come
Put
back
Ben
in?
back in. But the thing that to piggyback on what they said, what to show you the team concept, when Pete makes the out, before he goes back to the dugout, he says something to Ben, like I don't know exactly what he said, but he whispered something to Ben like, I didn't do it, you do it, or something like that. In other words, he didn't hang his head.
Right.
He didn't feel sorry for himself. He tried to help out the next batter, who was Ben, and Ben gets the base hit. So Riles saw that, I saw that. We were talking about that on the bus ride home to show you like what kind of team this is.
Right.
It's not like who does it, it's that we do it and get it done. And that was great.
Now you got to go to the bottom of the 11th, and Donnie, he's really out of gas at this point, and I think the first two guys get on, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
And then I think you went out there and you had a talk with him, and you basically said, listen, you have to do this. No, I know you're tired, but you have to go out there and finish
Yeah, there were a
this.
few expletives I used. That,
Right.
Ben, I think Ben might have come over and said, look, I'm not going to say it's on, but I kind of told him, this is it.
Right.
Be a man about this. I'm walking back to the dugout, and the home plate umpire says, you think you told him in language that he could understand? I said, absolutely.
Right.
And that was it, because then he popped, you caught a
Pop up. Yep.
Right.
and he struck out the last batter. So, I said, we're not going to do this all over again. We got you to lead 3 times. Let's get this done.
So Gino, I'll start with you. Talk about the final strike. The kid swings and misses for Terryville. What is the feeling like? You realize it's in Joey Lisa's mitt. What are you going through when you see that?
Mad craziness. It
Right.
is like we did it, Obviously, you're celebrating, you're jumping at first, and it took a couple minutes, to settle in.
Right.
But a very emotional feeling at that point, just an accomplished feeling
Right.
that, we're winners now.
Right, and I mean, it's everybody's dream to win that championship.
Yes.
You see it on TV all the time. So for you to be a part of it, it had to be really special.
It was awesome to walk out, your senior year state champ.
Right, it's better than that.
Incredible
Coach,
feeling.
What was your feeling like?
Well, it was funny because John and I had talked about it, sometime, I think, right before that pitch
Are we
or
gonna
whatever. Are we going to
run?
jump in that pile?
Right.
And John says, I'm going. And I said, well,
Let's
if you're
go.
going, then I'm going. And one of the things that I noticed at the time was that actual pitch, he didn't swing and miss. He tipped it into Joey's glove. Joey held on
Right.
to a tipped foul ball. So I was like, and Donnie, if you think about it, had run out of gas, everything he did. But once he got that second out,
It's like he got a burst.
he
of
got this
energy.
burst of adrenaline
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call it, and he just fired the ball up in the kid's eyes, and the kid just tipped it into Joey's glove like a slight tip.
Right.
Joey catches it, and then it's surreal. It's like a
Yes.
surreal feeling
Right.
after that. It's like, you're sort of going with the flow, and when that kind of thing happens. But it's a lot different now as I reflect on it, though, Mike, because I've been involved in
Right.
being on the other side of the coin,
Right.
as a coach. John has never had that experience. He was 2-0
2-0.
both of the times that he's
Yeah.
been there. So, there's a whole different feeling on the other side of the coin as being on the winning side versus the losing side. But I do remember how ecstatic it was, and we had a lot of different things happen in that game where it could have gone to either side, and I always wondered in the back of my mind for the last 25 years, really, is what happens with the Terryville kids. Like, how,
Right.
don't get me wrong. I'm glad we won.
Yeah.
But I always wondered, and Joey Guyon told me one time that he got to be friends with one of the kids on the other team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like they played
They
their
might have
hearts
went
out.
to UConn together, right? Or was it-
Yeah,
Yes, I believe so.
They played their hearts out, and we played our hearts out, and it was just a classic, like one of those heavyweight slugfest fights where you knock this guy down, he gets up and knocks you down, you get up
Right.
and knock him down. And the one thing that I think we just had a little bit more of that, we were doing what our guys were doing, what they were trained to do, because the other team in that last inning, I remember it. There were 3-0 counts they swung at. They swung at a 3-0 count to ground out to George
Couldn't
Hay.
believe it.
Right.
It was a 2-0 count that they popped up in the infield for the infield fly.
Right.
So, sometimes that over-aggressiveness, didn't pay off for them. But our kids just were saying, hey, we're going to make the plays, and we just, and Donnie just found it. He found
Right.
somewhere deep down, and, you talk about classic sports stories and grit, that is a classic sports story in and of itself, that game,
Right.
and just the way that we were able to go back and forth and back and forth, and from thinking about, well, we might lose, creeping into your mind, saying no, we can't let that happen, and doing something different to go the other way, and that was the beauty of it, was the game was one of redemption, and baseball is a redemption game, and they really, that was like a sort of a redemption for all of us really.
Right.
Yeah.
Coach, it was your first championship. You'd watched coaches like Lou DiFilippo, Charlie DeCenzo, who you coached with,
Right.
Tom Fay win championships.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to win that one as a head coach?
Well, I remember back, I think the second year I was coaching, we got beat by Ansodi in the quarterfinals, and I remember getting on the bus and the kids being sad, and my dad was there.
Right.
And I respected my dad as a baseball man, and I want to do well because, he was maligned because he didn't win, and I remember him standing by the bus. He said, well, don't feel bad that you didn't win. You haven't paid your dues.
Right.
And I remember looking up in the sky a few times. I said, look, if you got anything up there, could you bring it down now so that we
Right.
could win this game? And then Ben got the hit, and then Donnie strikes out the batter. I remember running out there, but I remember on the bus ride home, a feeling of solace, a calm came over me.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing my wife and my kids, and I was excited. And my mom was there, how excited she was.
Right.
Because, she understood the game because my dad lived the game too. So, but to see these kids find redemption on the baseball field, to see a look in Ben's eyes, to
Right.
see a look in Gino's eyes, they weren't losers anymore, they were winners. And that meant a lot to me because, they should have been remembered as the ones who broke the streak. They should be remembered as champions.
Right.
And in my eyes, they always will be. So, there's on Riles made a tape. I was listening to it yesterday. It was this. What was the song? I Will Remember You.
Yeah.
I played it. And you don't know when you're going to meet these kids. Like I see them
Right.
on the street, and there's always a shake of the hand or hug. Like
Right.
I remember I was subbing at the middle school, and these two guys found me, and then you got two visitors, there they were. So, I
Right.
stand up and I'm subbing in the 6th grade, and I'm hugging these two kids, and
Right.
not kids anymore, young men. And like it'll always be, we'll always be bonded that way.
Exactly.
We'll be connected that way. So no matter where they go, no matter where I go, I'll never forget them, and I hope they'll never forget me.
No, definitely not.
I'll never forget Riles. That's
Well, I do
Right.
remember we were on the bus ride back, Mike, and I said to John, I said, doesn't this feel like a dream?
Yeah.
And John looks at me and goes, if it's a dream, Rouse, then I want to die right now.
I don't want to wake up. Let me die now.
I don't want to
Because
wake
it
up.
was- it
He goes,
was-
let me die right now.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay.
Ben,
Yeah, so-
after everything you went through, the broken wrist, the hard luck that you had to go through, what was the feeling like for you when that final strike was made?
You can't describe it. It's being with first of all, being with the teammates, my friends who I grew up with, who I'm still friends with today, and celebrating that moment with them on the field. There's nothing like it. No one could ever take that away from us. We worked hard. We never gave up. We owe everything to these two guys sitting here next to us who not only taught us the game, but taught us about life too.
Right.
And that's something that I'll always be, remember them for, and be grateful for. but the ride home on the bus was amazing. You know, Derby, you always get that police escort when you win, so
Yeah.
you saw the police cars there and stuff like that. But for me, it capped it off. Like Gino said earlier, you know, to be an athlete in Derby and to play 3 sports your whole career, and knowing that the last time you put on a uniform that says Derby on it, you were a champion.
Right.
To me, it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's hard to believe we killed another hour already. We could keep going. But I really do applaud you guys. You know, Gino and Ben, the way you guys finished out your high school careers was remarkable. You guys never had quit in you. And don't ever let anybody tell you that you were losers. That season was not about losing. It was hard luck, and that's how I'll always look at it. And, you know, Coach D, Coach Riles, Coach Statulia, Joey Guyon, Joey Leza, Pete Krasnowski, Donnie Shepard. I mean, all those guys went out there and worked hard, and I think that's a credit to you coaches to get the most out of your kids. And I really do applaud you guys, and I want to thank you all for coming on
Thank
today.
you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you,
Mike.
Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, folks. 1992 Derby Red Raiders, an unbelievable group. What started out as a hard year for these seniors ended with triumph. Let's talk about Gino DeMauro. He may not have been the biggest guy out there. He may not have been the most talented. But could you honestly tell me there's anybody more dedicated than Gino DeMauro? He has the heart of a lion, and he played it each and every day. Coach Riles, here's a guy who had to leave for a year, but he knew how much he meant to these kids. He returned to help Coach D, and he capped it off with a state championship. Then, of course, there's Coach D. Francisco. Replacing a legend and trying to follow up on a legend is not easy. He had guys like Tom Fay, Charlie DeCenzo, Lou DiFilippo, who had long established themselves as great coaches. What did he do? He went out there and he won 2 state titles on his own. He not only stepped out of the shadow, he became his own person. And finally, Ben Bartone. Here's a kid who started off the year with one of the worst possible injuries anybody could have. But he never gave up. He never quit on himself. And even when his baseball season wasn't going right in the beginning, he knew he would finish off strong. And he definitely did, like the true champion he is. For Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying, good night, everyone.